The year 1928 was the beginning of Pope Pius XI Modesty Crusade. The called crusade against immodest fashions, especially in schools directed by religious. Ordered by Pope Pius XI on August 23, 1928, was all but completely ignored in the United States, even by the Catholic press. The letter containing the order was sent to all ordinaries of Italy through the Sacred Congregation of Religious, and was made known to the world through the Acta Apostolici Sedis in 1930. Yet, to this day, very few Catholics have even heard of this document, and scarcely anyone seems to know its gravely worded contents. To the ordinaries of Italy, regarding the crusade against immodest fashions, especially in schools directed by women religious. Most illustrious and reverend Sir, well known to you are the grave words of condemnation which the Holy Father spoke, on several occasions, with apostolic authority, against the immodest fashion of women dress which prevails today to the detriment of good breeding. Suffice it to recall the very grave words, charged with grief and admonition, with which in the discourse of August 15 current, in the consistorial chamber, promulgating the decree on the heroic virtues of Venerable Paula Frasinati, His Holiness denounced once again the danger which, by its seductive fascination, threatens so many unwary souls, who profess to belong to the flock of Jesus Christ and to His Holy Church. It is painful to point out in this regard that the deplorable custom tends to insinuate itself among young girls who frequent, as extern pupils, some of the schools directed by sisters and Sunday school classes which are held in female religious institutions. In order to confront a danger which by spreading, becomes ever more grave, this sacred congregation by order of the Holy Father calls upon the ordinaries of Italy, so that they may communicate to the superiors of the houses of female religious, in their respective dioceses the following injunctions of this sacred congregation, confirmed by His Holiness in audience this day. In all schools, academies, recreation centers, Sunday schools, and laboratories directed by female religious, not to be admitted from now on, those girls who do not observe in their attire the rules of modesty and Christian decency. To this end, the superiors themselves will be obliged to exercise a close supervision, and exclude peremptorily from the schools and projects of their institutions, those pupils who do not conform to these prescriptions. They must not be influenced in this by any human respect, either for material considerations, or by reason of the social prestige and of the families of their pupils, even though the student body should diminish in number. Furthermore, the sisters, in fulfillment of their educational pursuits, must endeavor to inculcate sweetly and strongly in their pupils the love and relish for holy modesty, the sign and guardian of purity, and delicate adornment of womankind. Your Reverence will be vigilant that these injunctions be exactly observed, and that there be perfect conformity of conduct among all the institutes of female religious in the diocese. You will severely call to task whoever should fail in this, and should any abuse be prolonged, you will notify this sacred congregation. With deepest esteem, I remain, devotedly yours, G. Cardinal Laurenti, Prefect. Detailed instructions on modesty of dress for women had been issued on September 24, 1928, by the Cardinal Vicar, Vicar General, of Pope Pius XI in Rome, Basilio Cardinal Pompili. We recall that a dress cannot be called decent, which is cut deeper than 2 fingers' breadth under the pit of the throat, which does not cover the arms at least to the elbows, and scarcely reaches a bit beyond the knees. Furthermore, dresses of transparent material are improper. On January 12, 1930, the Sacred Congregation of the Council, now called the Congregation for the Clergy, by order of Pope Pius XI, issued a letter to the bishops that exhorted bishops, priests, nuns, teachers, parents, etc. to insist on modesty in those under their charge. By virtue of the supreme apostolate which he wields over the universal Church by divine will, our most holy Father Pope Pius XI, has never ceased to inculcate, both verbally and by his writings, the words of St. Paul, namely, women, adorning themselves with modesty and sobriety, and professing godliness with good work. Very often, when occasion arose, the same Supreme Pontiff condemned emphatically the immodest fashion of dress adopted by Catholic women and girls, which fashion not only offends the dignity of women and against her adornment, but conduces to the temporal ruin of the women and girls, and, what is still worse, to their eternal ruin, miserably dragging down others in their fall. It is not surprising, therefore, that all bishops and other ordinaries, as is the duty of ministers of Christ, should in their own dioceses have unanimously opposed their depraved licentiousness and promiscuity of manners, often bearing with fortitude the derision and mockery leveled against them for this cause. Therefore this sacred council, which watches over the discipline of clergy and people, while cordially commending the action of the venerable bishops, most emphatically exhorts them to persevere in their attitude and increase their activities insofar as their strength permits, in order that this unwholesome disease be definitely uprooted from human society. In order to facilitate the desired effect, this sacred congregation, by the mandate of the Most Holy Father, has decreed as follows: the parish priest, and especially the preacher, when occasion arises, should, according to the words of the Apostle Paul, insist, argue, exhort and command that feminine garb be based on modesty, and womanly ornament be a defense of virtue. Let them likewise admonish parents to cause their daughters to cease wearing indecorous dress. Parents, conscious of their grave obligations toward the education, especially religious and moral, to their offspring, should see to it that their daughters are solidly instructed, from earliest childhood, in Christian doctrine. And they themselves should assiduously inculcate in their souls, by word and example, love for the virtues of modesty and chastity. And since their family should follow the example of the Holy Family, they must rule in such a manner that all its members, reared within the walls of the home, should find reason and incentive to love and preserve modesty. Let parents keep their daughters away from public gymnastic games and contests, but if their daughters are compelled to attend such exhibitions, let them see that they are fully and modestly dressed. Let them never permit their daughters to wear immodest garb. Superiors and teachers in schools for girls must do their utmost to instill love of modesty in the hearts of maidens, confided to their care, and urge them to dress modestly. Superiors and teachers must not receive in their colleges and schools immodestly dressed girls, and should not even make an exception in the case of mothers of pupils. If, after being admitted, girls persist in dressing immodestly, such pupils should be dismissed. Nuns, in compliance with the letter dated August 23, 1928, by the Sacred Congregation of Religious, must not receive in their colleges, schools, oratories or recreation grounds, or, if once admitted, tolerate girls who are not dressed with Christian modesty. Nuns, in addition, should do their utmost so that love for holy chastity and Christian modesty may become deeply rooted in the hearts of their pupils. It is desirable that pious organizations of women be founded, which by their counsel, example and propaganda should combat the wearing of apparel unsuited to Christian modesty, and should promote purity of customs and modesty of dress. In the pious associations of women, those who dress immodestly should not be admitted to membership. But if perchance, they are received, and after having been admitted, fall again into their error, they should be dismissed forthwith. Maidens and women dressed immodestly are to be debarred from Holy Communion, and from acting as sponsors at the sacraments of baptism and confirmation. Further, if the offense be extreme, they may even be forbidden to enter the church. Donato Cardinal Sperati, Prefect. Congregation of the Council. Rome, January 12, 1930. Pope Pius XII continued the Modesty Crusade during his pontificate. In an allocution of May 22, 1941 to young Catholic girls during World War II, he urged them not to fall for fashions that had, until then, been worn only by women of doubtful virtue. His words are a sobering reminder that the Church is ever mindful of the salvation of souls. Numbers of believers and pious women, in accepting to follow certain bold fashions, break down by their example the resistance of many other women to such fashions, which may become for them the cause of spiritual ruin. As long as these provocative styles remain identified with women of doubtful virtue, good women do not dare to follow them. But once these styles have been accepted by women of good reputation, decent women soon follow their example, and are carried along by the tide into possible disaster. Summer 1946, the first bikini appeared in Paris. That summer, Pope Pius XII said, "Now many girls do not see anything wrong with following certain shameless styles, like so many sheep. They would surely blush if they could only guess the impression they make and the feelings they arouse in those who see them." Allocution to Children of Mary Immaculate, July 17, 1954. Pope Pius XII cautioned women that, if certain styles were an occasion of sin for others, it was their duty not to wear them. He also warned mothers to make sure their children were dressed modestly. The good of our soul is more important than that of our body, and we have to prefer the spiritual welfare of our neighbor to our bodily comforts. If a certain kind of dress constitutes a grave and proximate occasion of sin, and endangers the salvation of your soul and others, it is your duty to give it up. O Christian mothers, if you knew what a future of anxieties and perils, of ill-subdued doubts, of hardly suppressed shame you prepare for your sons and daughters. Imprudently getting them accustomed to live scantily dressed and making them lose the sense of modesty. You would be ashamed of yourselves, and you would dread the harm you are making for yourselves, the harm which you are causing these children, whom heaven has entrusted to you to be brought up as Christians. May 22, 1941.